8 years ago, when I came to this country, I already knew many things about Britishness, but some other things were a cultural shock. And one of them was the unique ability of British people to stay calm, polite, and very patient in a queue. This week, the entire world is a witness to this unique national trait. People are waiting for over 14 hours to pay their respect to Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The actual moment in Westminster Hall may last for less than a minute, but the idea that you are part of history, of historical moments, is something that many people identify as their main motivation to wait for so long. And as some of the people on Twitter define this queue is that this is what we've been preparing for all our lives. But the primary purpose of this queue is not the queue itself. So the primary purpose, in a similar way that the primary purpose of Hebrew months Elul, the Hebrew months we are at now, is to prepare for Yamim Noraim, the days of awe, or high holidays. This is the moment of deep personal reflection, and in the words of Rabbi Alan Lew, a moment when a Jewish person has a rehearsal of their own death. Thoughts about our own death are scary, but Alan Lew said that the idea is that it should inspire us to live a happy and meaningful life. If you can imagine how you would like to be remembered by future generations, it might change the way you lead your life today. Therefore, the month of Elul has the following questions for all of us. How to live a meaningful life? How to be happy and have a sense of fulfillment? As a rabbi, I often looked at Torah or our tradition for answers. I'm not sure Torah necessarily speaks in the category of happiness or fulfillment in life, or gives concrete answers to these important questions. But I think that Torah, or the way we study it, forces us to ask these questions over and over again. A part of this week's Torah portion has a special name, or some people call it a special name, tochecha. The meaning of the word is admonition or reproof. Originally, it refers to a section in chapter 26 of the book of Leviticus, which lists the consequences of failure by Israelites to follow commandments. The section of this week's Torah portion, Deuteronomy chapter 28, has a similar series of curses proclaimed by Moses. And it is curses. So, and then they are in very strong language. In it, Moses instructed people to conduct a national ritual after the Israelites had crossed the river Jordan and entered the promised land. This ritual was supposed to happen in a very specific place, on Mounts Gerizim and Eval. So the two mountains, and in between there are Levites standing. So 6 tribes were to stand on Mount Gerizim when blessings are spoken, and the others were to stand on Mount Eval when the curses were spoken. The Levites were to stand in between the 2 mountains and loudly curse anyone who made a sculptured image, insulted one's parents, moved a fellow's landmark, misdirected a blind person, subverted the rights of the stranger, the orphan, the widow. In other words, there was a public promise to keep some standard of moral behavior and ethical life. In other words, the Israelites are told that if they obey God's mitzvot, God's commandment, they will receive blessings. If they don't fulfill their covenant with God, many curses will descend upon them. What is remarkable is the balance between blessings and curses. What do you think what do you think the balance is? Are there more blessings or more curses? What would be logical? Interesting, because we live in the world today when we would probably focus more on positive reinforcement rather than telling people what's wrong all the time. So, but yes, there are more curses, way more curses than blessings. So why is it so? Some commentators argue that it's important to look at the purpose of saying them and the consequence of saying blessings and curses. When you say a curse over a bad behavior, you want it to be improved. But when you say a blessing, there is a danger that a person would become arrogant and think that everything they do is perfect. Therefore, we have an obligation to raise our concerns over unethical and unjust behavior, speak out against injustice and unfairness, but good behavior doesn't always need a comment. This is how the world is supposed to be. There's nothing extraordinary in justice or fairness. In other words, one should always look at the end goal and potential consequence of every action, and only do it when the purpose is understood and clear. It's the sense of purpose and clear vision of the world and how you want it to be that makes your life happy and meaningful. The researchers support this idea too. They looked at data from over 6,000 participants, focusing on their self-reported purpose in life. They asked few questions. Do you have purpose in life? It doesn't matter which purpose it is, but whether they had it or not, that was the subject. They concluded that having a sense of purpose may add years to your life. When you know why you are in this queue, not only you can wait, this makes your life meaningful, happier, and longer. Rabbi Marshall Mayer, a rabbi and human rights activist, was inspired by this week's Torah portion and formulated a series of blessings for this time of the Jewish year. I know that I've just told you that blessings are not always necessary, but they serve as counter blessings to the curses from this week's Torah portion. He was able to articulate blessings in a way that they are not just a reflection and expression of gratitude, but an inspiration to become better. Dear Max, I know how driven you are and how much you enjoy learning and going deep into everything you do. On this Shabbat, I would like to wish you only one thing, that you always have a clear vision of this world and about your future, that you know why you are here and have a sense of purpose in this metaphorical queue that some people call life. At this historical moment, we can say that all of us are in the queue, waiting for a significant change and improvement to happen to all of us. Let's read these blessings together. Give us the courage to extirpate from our history those ideas and values which are inimical to the sanctity of life of other peoples, creeds, and races. Grant us the compassion to emphasize with the forgotten the mourners, the disfranchised, the sick, the homeless, the anxiety-ridden, the disabled, the unloved and uncared for individuals about us, the masses of humanity that grapple with disrespect and hopelessness. Enlighten our minds so that we may compose new prayers to stir out tired hearts, to awaken new tears and dry eyes, to move our all too comfortable consciousness, and thus may we be moved to inscribe our own letters, perhaps even a word or two, in the eternal book of life. And let us all say, Amen.